The answer choices to this question make me think we're probably going to be dealing with sentence structure. I see that we have a period and a semicolon, and there is a weird case where semicolons kind of behave differently, but for most cases, the reason we use a semicolon is to separate two complete sentences. Well, that's what a period does too. So in most cases, choices C and D are going to actually be the exact same thing, and that does not bode well for either of them, because if they're the same grammatically, how would we know which one to do? Probably we're going to need something that's different, that's going to accomplish a different goal. But let's take a look at the sentence and see what we can kind of come up with here. In fact, I'm going to skip right to here, because I know that if it's about sentence structure, I need to look at the sentences that are actually changing, not the ones before. When viewed up close, however, the portraits reveal themselves to be quilts, the stitching barely visible among the thousands of pieces of printed microcut fabric. Okay, so here's what I see. The portraits reveal themselves to be quilts. That's my sentence. Everything else is extra. So I have an intro clause, when viewed up close. I have like another kind of interruption here, a transition-y word, and those commas there are also kind of letting us insert that in the sentence. But even without the however, I would still need a comma between close and the portraits to attach this extra piece to the sentence. Then the weird part happens. What's going on at the end? Well, this is also an extra clause. The stitching barely visible among the thousands of pieces of printed microcut fabric. This comma is because we have a list of adjectives, so it's kind of doing its own thing. But this comma is letting me attach another extra clause to the end of my sentence. So what makes that not a sentence? This is going to be hard for many of you to hear. But what we need in order for something to be a sentence is both a subject and a verb. Something does something. That's what a subject is the something, and the verb is the action that it does. So in the green, I have that. The portraits is my subject, reveal is my verb, right? So the portraits reveal, that's the subject and the verb. But in the pink at the end, I don't have both of those pieces. The stitching barely visible among the thousands of pieces of printed microcut fabric. It seems like it, but I don't actually have a verb. I don't have an action here. I have a noun. I'm pretty sure the stitching is kind of my subject, if you want to call it that. It's a noun. It's kind of like the topic of this clause, but it never actually does anything, right? What's the action here? We could change it slightly and add an action. We could say the stitching is barely visible among the thousands of pieces of printed microcut fabric. If we did that, stitching is. Now that's going to change the punctuation. If I have is, I'm going to need something like the semicolon or the period, or I'm going to need a conjunction, and. So that is tricky because it's a one tiny word that we're missing that's going to completely change how we punctuate the sentence, but I was able to think about that because I knew that going in. The answer choices kind of primed my brain to be thinking about those things. And I think with practice too, you can get better and better at just instantly hearing a couple of words and being like, oh, that's a sentence and that's not. And the length doesn't matter. Notice that the pink is actually longer than the green. So the length of something does not make it a sentence. You can have very short sentences and very long extra clauses. So it's really about that idea of subjects and verbs, things that you can learn more and practice.